We have a very special treat for you today. Our guest speaker is Lori Lee Andrews. I first met Lori Lee back in '93 when her child and my child, when we went to Jazzercise together and they were in their little bumble seats, and Lori Lee and I hit it off so well that we decided that arranged marriages should come back into our culture, or maybe we never had those, but we should have them in our culture, and our children would get married so that she and I could be sister-in-laws together. Well, that's probably not going to happen. However, Claire and Jack are dear, dear, dear friends to this very day, going through preschool together. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Lori Lee ever since that time, and I think you'll really appreciate what she has to share and how that will move you. So let's welcome Lori Lee.
Thank you, and thanks for helping me feel so welcome here. That very powerful video came into my vision just this past week, and I asked if we could add it to the service because it speaks so much to what I want to share with you about my experience, and I want to talk to you about gifts. I think the metaphor of a gift is so important, especially at this time of the year. The year is just getting off to a new start. Maybe you haven't cleaned up from Christmas or you're getting ready for Valentine's Day. But the idea of a gift is, and the gifts that you have, is an important metaphor. It has been for me, and I just want to share it with you. I brought a Bible verse for you that I want to share. That is, each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others faithfully, administering God's grace in its various forms. And that's 1 Peter 4:10. And then I want to share a quote that's important to me. Human beings are the only animals on the planet who ask, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What is my purpose? There are two great days in a person's life: the day we are born and the day we know why. So I want to share a little bit about my little metaphor of a gift. And I think about my children or my mom or a dear friend, and I ask you to go along with me and think of someone who you love very, very dearly, and imagine that you want to impart to them the gift that you believe will make their life better or brighten their life. And so as a mom, I used to listen to conversations and zero in on what it was that my child wanted, and I'd shop, and it was so important to me. Oh, I want to give you a gift that you're going to love. And then I'd wrap it and put a pretty bow on it. And then when I gave that to my child, from time to time, I had the experience of that person opening the gift and saying, oh, thank you very much. That's very nice. And I'm just going to put, having a lukewarm response. Maybe even I would find the gift a month later and it hadn't even been used or looked at. And even later down the line, it's still in the box. And that's such a disheartening feeling as someone who's reaching out to someone I love. And so when I personify my Creator, and I think about being a beloved child of God, and I think about what it means to have a gift that has been given to me by God, I think about that package. And I think about the fact that I've had the experience of being the one who said, thank you very much, I'm just going to stick that away because I'm not going to use it right now. Just imagine yourself receiving a gift and saying, that's okay. Yeah, I'm not really in the mood to do that right now, and so I'm just going to put that on a shelf, and maybe someday I'll look at it later. For me, that gift was art. I'll tell you, I'm going to get a little vulnerable, and I even brought slides of my life and share some things about my life and my journey. When I was a child, they say that you can predict what your purpose is, or if you're looking for a way to find what your purpose is, to think about what you loved to do as a child. And I loved a lot of things. I loved playing with dolls, and I loved playing housekeeping, and I loved all kinds of things. But the thing that I loved more than anything was drawing. And I can remember as a small child picking up a pen and drawing all over my mom's checkbook and drawing mice from cartoons and all that kind of thing. And so drawing was always part of who I was. And later on, when I was in high school, art was my respite from the drama of adolescence, and going to art class and sitting down and drawing and creating was the best time of the day. It was the time that I felt joy during my day. When I was choosing what to major in college, though, I considered going to art school, but I was afraid that I wouldn't be good enough. Even though I loved it, I was afraid I wouldn't be good enough. I want to share, this is my family, my husband. I was a mom, I was a wife, I was a teacher. There's another picture of one of my classes with one of my cohort in crime, Ann Adams, who I taught with for a long time. I loved that part of my life. I loved my work with children, and I loved being a mother. And that might have been enough. But one day I was in the classroom, and I saw a poster that someone had put up, and it said, "Who you are is God's gift to you. What you make of yourself is your gift to God." And I felt convicted. Even though I was doing so much that I loved and that I valued in my life, deep down inside, I knew that I wasn't using one of the most profound gifts that God had given me. And I also knew that God does not give gifts to people with the expectation that they will not be used. If God has given you a gift, it is with the intention that you would share it with other people. I believe that you get a gift not just for yourself, but because it's your responsibility to bring it to the table and to use it and to enjoy it with others. I remember about 10 or 12 years ago, I started visiting different artists in their studios, and I can remember thinking, gosh, how do you get this gig? I mean, I wanted to do that, and I just didn't even know how to go about doing it, except that I started researching, and really all of the artists who I loved and admired, in their bio, it always told where they went to school, where they got their degree in fine arts, where they learned how to do what they did. And so I started toying with the idea of going back to school, and this was in my late 40s. And I have to tell you, there was so much about that was so daunting to me. Going back to art school just seemed like it was beyond reality. I assumed that my family would think I was crazy for wanting to do it, and they did. And it would mean quitting my job, which seemed like an impossible notion, because my husband and I had so many things that we wanted to provide for our family. It seemed really selfish to me to choose to turn our family life upside down so that I could go back to school. We had 2 children in college at the time. It just seemed like an impossible dream. And worst of all, I was still taunted by the fear that the reason that it was crazy was because I wasn't good enough to be called an artist. This is a clip from one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future. And it's one that I've always related to. Marty McFly goes back in time and meets his father in his high school years, and he's stunned to learn that at this age, his dad had dreams of his own. So I have to tell you that the next chapter is that in the fall of 2007, I quit my job. I went back to school. It still does seem like a miracle to me because, honestly, my family wasn't 100% on board, and I don't even know how it happened because I always loved harmony in my household, and as a result of that, there was a lot of time when I didn't pursue my own dreams because I wanted to have the harmony in my household. And at this point, I made a transformation from church lady, preschool teacher, working mom, and that transformation was most exciting and terrifying and difficult and wonderful and mind-boggling journeys that anyone could be on. It's been 9 years since I took my first class at Heron. And I have to say, it was about 50 years from the day I was born until the day I knew why. The years have been filled with tears of frustration and false starts. And I shouldn't make it sound like it was all bad, because it certainly wasn't, because it's been absolutely joyful. And now I do have my own studio, and I have my work in galleries, and I sell my work. And it's my dream come true. It's the life of my dreams, actually. And it's not always easy at all. And there are many times when I have to face, feelings of rejection or doubt. And when I do, that's when I think of my hero, Vincent van Gogh. And I don't think it's possible that anyone in this room doesn't know who Vincent van Gogh is. He's one of the most famous artists who has ever lived on the planet. And whether or not you know this, during his lifetime, he painted about 900 paintings. He was so prolific, and he painted with that style that anyone can look at a Van Gogh and know instantly, with with his palette knife marks in the paint. He did about 900 paintings, and he sold one. He sold one painting in his lifetime. That's all the more encouragement he got, and yet he still was driven to paint 900 paintings. And he didn't switch the way he painted because people told him he was doing it wrong. He knew how he was supposed to be painting, and he just kept doing it. And of course, we know that 7 years after he passed, people started buying his paintings voraciously. And the last time that a Van Gogh sold on auction, it sold for $82 million. So I can't be worried about whether or not what I'm doing right now is perfect for everybody else right now. I have to do what I'm called to do and do what I intuitively know I'm here to do. And I have faith that eventually someone will be moved by it. Someone will go forward because of something that I have done as an artist. There's a book that I want to share with you, and it is called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And it's an important enough book that I made a slide of it. This book sees me through a lot of things, but it certainly has seen me through my time of doubt or wondering, am I doing the right thing? The Four Agreements, and Oprah Winfrey buys this for all of her staff. And I've been at different occasions, like different workshops where we use the Four Agreements because it's just a guidebook to integrity. But one of the agreements is never take anything personally. And that has become so important to me. If someone doesn't like something I have done, I can't take it personally, and I can't let it stop what I need to be doing and moving forward. I had lots of mentors on this journey. My own mother, my mom ran the Detroit Marathon when she was 50 years old. She was one of those people who was jogging around the neighborhood before anyone knew what jogging was. And at age 50, she ran the Detroit Marathon. Her knees have never been the same, but and the best part of it is she finished dead last. Like, she finished after most of the group had finished, and she finished. And that's a really important, that's so important to me. It's what an inspiration. And ever since, she's been a lifelong advocate of trying new things and living healthy. The other thing that I learned, and as I told you, my family was not necessarily on board with this journey, and yet as time went on and they understood how devoted I was, they came around, and it was really a gift to see that the people who I love could support me in something, whether they understood it or not. That was a great gift to me. And it was probably one of the most important gifts that I've received from the journey. I at one time thought I was being selfish by pursuing my gifts. And I learned that my family is happier and more authentic because I'm pursuing my gifts. And As a mother, it was always my desire to be able to inspire my children to be the best version of themselves that they could be. I cannot change them, and the only way I can inspire them is if I am inspired. I believe that one of the reasons we were given these gifts and that they're so different is because we're supposed to share them. And I believe that the way we are supposed to be aimed toward our gifts is by what brings us joy. And I also know that we live in a culture that makes us feel ridiculous for chasing the thing that brings us joy. We're taught that we need to pursue something that we know we can get a job in or that will pay a lot of money. And I know we've got bills to pay, but I also know that God has given us gifts so that we can share them. I want to tell you about a friend of mine who's an inspiration to me. And I have to tell you that my friend passed away about 2 weeks ago. His name was Mike X, and he married my former roommate and dear friend, and they had 3 children, and he loved his family, he loved his friends, and Mike loved football. You know, it's a big football day, and a lot of little boys in our country start their lives out thinking, I'm going to be a quarterback, I'm going to be a football player, and the reality is how many people actually have the stature or the talent to make it to the NFL. And that can be very daunting to someone to feel like their gifts have been squelched because they loved football. But my friend Mike loved football, and he loved his alma mater, Bishop Luers in Fort Wayne. And he started out, I believe, as a volunteer, but he was an assistant coach for over 35 years. And I want to share a clip from the Fort Wayne newspaper, or the Fort Wayne news station, of my friend Mike in action, coaching players at Bishop Luers. Mike held different jobs during his life. He was a paper salesman when I met him. He later sold real estate, and I can't even remember what else he may have sold. He will not be remembered as a famous salesman, but many, I would say hundreds, maybe many people stood in very long lines to talk to his family when he passed. And many of those people were players who he had coached, who he had made a huge difference for. Mike was never a person who was going to make it to the NFL, but no one could doubt that football was a gift for him. So he inspires me to the quote by Howard Thurman, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because the world needs people who have come alive." So I ask you, what's it mean for you? What makes you come alive? What would you do all day even if you didn't get paid? There's so many gifts to embrace. Are you a healer, a chef, an athlete, an organizer, a scholar, a writer, a performer, a dancer, a teacher? Whatever you feel in your heart, you are called to be. My question to you is, do you have a gift waiting on your shelf that you could take down and unwrap? And maybe you want to say, I often hear people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. And I would love to encourage you to think a little differently about that. All of us are afraid of failure, we're afraid of looking goofy, and sometimes it's the price we pay to do the thing that God brought us here to do. I want to share a story with you. I'm hearkening back to my days as a preschool teacher, and I love reading stories to children, and I'd like to read the story of The Dot by Peter Reynolds. Art class was over, but Vashti sat glued to her chair. Her paper was empty. Vashti's teacher leaned over the blank paper. "Ah, a polar bear in a snowstorm," she said. "Very funny," said Vashti. "I just can't draw." Her teacher smiled. "Just make a mark and see where it takes you." Vashti grabbed a marker and gave the paper a good strong jab. "There." The teacher picked up the paper and studied it carefully. She pushed the paper toward Vashti and quietly said, "Now sign it." Vashti thought for a moment. "Well, maybe I can't draw, but I can sign my name." The next week, when Vashti walked into art class, she was surprised to see what was hanging above her teacher's desk. It was the little dot she had drawn, her dot, all framed in swirly gold. I can make a better dot than that." She opened her never-before-used set of watercolors and set to work. Vashti painted and painted, a red dot, a purple dot, a yellow dot, a blue dot. The blue mixed with the yellow. She discovered that she could make a green dot. Vashti kept experimenting. Lots of little dots in many colors. If I can make little dots, I can make big dots too. Vashti splashed her colors with a bigger brush on bigger paper to make bigger dots. Vashti even made a dot by not painting a dot. At the school art show a few weeks later, Vashti's many dots made quite a splash. Vashti noticed a little boy gazing up at her. "You're a really great artist. I wish I could draw," he said. "I bet you can," said Vashti. "Me? No, not me. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Vashti smiled. She handed the boy a blank sheet of paper. "Show me." The boy's pencil shook as he drew his line. Vashti stared at the boy's squiggle, and then she said, "Sign it."